What is up, casuals, and welcome to the NerdyD Wrestling Show, where each and every week NerdyD breaks down everything you need to know about professional wrestling. This week we are discussing my confusion with NXT, how the IWC created corporate punk, and I make a huge apology to a WWE superstar for a major mistake that I have made in my past. But first, if you want to support the casual wrestling community creator fund, you have a couple of bucks to toss our way. You can follow the link in the description of this video to help support the growth of this channel. If not, no big deal. Strap in. We're about to talk pro wrestling. All right, so let's start the show a little bit different this week. Seeing that I've been lying on my deathbed for the past week, void of all responsibilities. I've had the flu, so that is the reason that this episode is coming to you late. That is the reason for the lack of content this week. Is basically this is the first time I've been able to get up and move around. But the fortunate thing about laying in bed for the last 3 days was I was able to catch up on NXT this past week. Now, NXT is one of those anomalies to me where I get to hear you guys talk about all the good things. You guys constantly are telling me good things about NXT, and because I don't have the time to watch a third brand of wrestling, I just have to take your guys' word on it. And it's funny that when I bring up the conversation, which I do regularly, about which is the best brand of professional wrestling in WWE, which obviously is still SmackDown, by the way. I'm not going to argue that with you guys. Y'all can say all the crazy shit you want. SmackDown's the best brand of wrestling. But when I do bring up that conversation, inevitably, there are a few outliers who always throw NXT into the conversation for best wrestling brand on television. So I got the opportunity to sit down and watch this week. I went back and watched the premium live event. I watched the week before, and I watched this week's episode because I wanted to see what is all of this hype about. And I will say, I will be truthful, inside of a vacuum, to an untrained wrestling eye, I can see that as a wrestling fan, how you could get enamored with the intimate nature of NXT. NXT has a pace that is very suited for what I would call younger casual wrestling fans. It is very much the TikTok of professional wrestling. It moves at a very fast pace. They tell like 100 stories in the 2 hours that they're on television. And another positive is NXT has genuine character work. I can see the effort put into character building. You see cowboys, you see guys in masks, you see punk rock chicks, you see a Tiger King. There's an element of being grounded in gimmicks that is very easy to understand and follow when you watch NXT. And I also think that there is this intimate nature of it being in a small physical building at a regular location that gives off this energy that the crowd is just always fully engaged with the product. And I think that's intoxicating. I think that if you watch that, it intoxicates you and it's an attractive visual to anybody who's watching NXT. And that's all great. Those are all great qualities of professional wrestling. The problem is that NXT doesn't exist inside of a vacuum. And inside of a vacuum, it would be easy to mistake NXT as the best brand of wrestling on television. But the truth is, NXT does not exist in this vacuum. And here's the catch. And maybe you have to be a connoisseur of casual like myself to be able to catch these small elements, but there's a harsh reality to watching NXT, and that is the wrestlers are green, and they're protected, and they're robotic. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because at the end of the day, outside of this vacuum, it's not really fair to compare NXT to the main roster, because I could just watch one episode and it's blatantly clear to me that what I've said all along has never been truer. NXT is developmental wrestling. You can have the greatest stories. You can have the most likable characters. You can have high energy, big spot matches, which, by the way, feel eerily similar to what we see in AEW. But at the end of the day, from an entertainment standpoint, from just breaking it down to its truest form, NXT is still very green wrestling. And all you have to do is use a simple eye test. It's simple. If you take one of the NXT superstars and you pluck them out of that company and you put them in the ring with a main roster superstar at any level, let's say Seth Rollins, let's say CM Punk, let's say Roman Reigns, let's say LA Knight, how do they stack up? Do they pass the visual test? Can they talk their way into a big match? Do they look the look and do they walk the walk to belong in the main roster ring? And as I watched NXT this past week, I just couldn't see that with most of the superstars. I didn't see any that were in that position. Now, once again, here's the reality. They're not supposed to be. This is where they take the time to grow. That is why I believe the main roster is so stacked right now, is because you have these guys who are given the proper amount of time on NXT to hone those skills and become who they are. And I understand that if you take this argument out of context, it's going to look like I'm shitting on NXT. But you have to remember, in context for what I'm talking about right now, I'm being told that these guys are putting on the best show in all of professional wrestling right now. But let's use the eye test. Cora Jade. She absolutely has the look. Phenomenal look. She's going to turn heads. But when you put a microphone in Cora Jade's hands, she still needs time. She reminds me a lot of Liv Morgan. Somebody who has all the visual intangibles that you need to be a big star, but she's just not there on the microphone. You can't put her in the ring right now with a Charlotte Flair, a Bianca Belair, a Becky, an Asuka, Io. She just doesn't have that magnitude of stardom yet. And I know the argument that's going to come my way that there are people currently on the main roster right now like Shotzi, and I use Liv Morgan as an example, who really can't stand on that level either. And my counter argument to that is, yeah, Vince McMahon brought a lot of people up to the main roster too soon. So then we talk about someone like Trick Williams, who I think is likable as shit. I really think Trick Williams has a big future ahead of him in the WWE, but he still needs time. If you pay attention closely and you don't become enamored with the intimacy of NXT, you can see that Trick Williams is still very robotic inside of a ring. He feels like he's reading from a script. He feels like he's been programmed to talk and act a certain way. He does not look completely comfortable in his own skin at this time, which is, once again, perfectly fine because these guys have time to develop. Then you move on to someone like Carmelo Hayes, who I feel like is probably a guy that is very close to being ready for that next level. I think he's very close to being ready for the main roster. But here's, you have to be realistic when you talk about this, in the fact that when Carmelo Hayes gets called up, it's not going to be to main event SmackDown or Raw. He's going to be on the mid-card part of the show. And so what we have to be realistic about is the top talent right now in NXT is maybe mid-roster talent on the main shows. And that's okay, once again, because, like I said, that's where you're supposed to be. But you can't compare one show, NXT, to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown when the top talent from that first show is not equal to the top talent. It just doesn't add up. Now, the one person who wasn't on NXT this week, but who I think, Braun Breaker, I believe, he's got all the intangibles. I think Braun Breaker's ready. You can move Braun Breaker up right now, and I think he could hold his own in most main event pictures on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. So there's an exception to every rule, but there's not 15 Braun Breakers running around NXT right now. I'm not sold on Ilya Dragunov, and I know a lot of people are, and I know that a lot of people think he's the next big thing to come out of NXT, but I can't see what Ilya Dragunov does at an elite enough level that puts him on the map on the main roster. I can see why people think he's good. I just don't see that intangible thing that gets him over on that next level. To me, from an eye test, he reads small on the screen. And I know he's not that much smaller than a lot of other guys. It's just a visual thing to me. He reads as a small superstar. And small guys have to have a special element that gets them over when they reach that main roster. And I just don't see it with him. At 5'10", you have to wow people. You have to do one thing extremely good. He's not going to stand across the ring right now from someone like Gunther and command respect long-term based on his mic skills, based on his look, based on his ability to wrestle. He does everything well, but I don't think he does anything exceptional. Look at Johnny Gargano, a guy who I would say does a lot of things extremely well, but he's never broken up to that next level on the main roster. Even guys like Bryan Danielson were just another guy until he kind of found that thing that took him to the next level and he forced his way into a top spot. I don't know what Dragunov has to appeal to the crowd, to a casual fan base. I get how he appeals to hardcore fans, but this is not AEW. I think if we're having the conversation about Ilya Dragunov moving up and progressing into AEW, sure, I think he's the next big thing. But I think to move up to that main roster WWE superstar, you have to have something that makes you a little cachet, something that makes you pop a little bit. You know, how does Ilya Dragunov, how does he sell the t-shirt on the main roster? Because I don't see it. How does he get on the poster? How does he get on the magazine cover, the program cover? You know, how does he get on the napkins at Party City for the WWE birthday parties? Right now, Dragunov just doesn't have that it factor that is going to take him to that next level. Now, does he have time to figure it out? 100%. Like I said, if we're having this conversation in a vacuum, Ilya's on the right fucking path. But when you're comparing NXT to Monday Night Raw or to Friday Night SmackDown, we have to be realistic. I'm sure 100% that Dragunov is going to figure it out. I'm sure that he will become entertaining and figure out that it factor at some point, but it's not there right now. And case in point is put Ilya Dragunov next to Logan Paul, a guy who's had a handful of wrestling matches, and you tell me who is the more marketable superstar that most of the audience is going to pay to come see. It is not Ilya Dragunov. It is Logan Paul. It is marketing. It is entertainment. Logan Paul does certain things extremely well, like market himself. And so that is the argument that has to be made when you're comparing these two shows. When you're saying that NXT is the top brand, you have to show me champion for champion why that makes sense. And I can understand, I can see how there's a lot of people are going to go, this is another Nerdy D Debbie Downer conversation. And I don't want this to feel this way. Like, NXT is the future of WWE, and the future is secure. When you look at all of these names like Cora Jade, Dragunov, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker, like the future is beautiful for WWE. I'm not mad. It's just going to take time, and I'm not willing to crown this set of superstars the best thing on television. They're not as strong as the main roster is. I can't draw that line of comparison to say out loud that NXT is competing with the television show that is on one of the major networks. I think that is silly. I can see why it is some people's favorite, especially people who tend to lend themselves a little more, they may be casual, but they lend themselves a little more into the world of the IWC. I see how you guys could like it, but I can't draw the line. I can't draw the line because I still see amateur versus professional wrestling in my eyes. It is the G League of wrestling. As a basketball person, the only comparison I can draw is it's like going and sitting in a G League basketball game and a guy scores 35 points and has 20 rebounds and you go, oh, that guy's amazing at basketball. That guy is definitely going to be good at the next level. No, that guy is good at the level he's on, and the level he's on is definitely not as high as the NBA, and so he will have to prove himself at that next level. So acting like these NXT guys, yes, there's a lot of energy in that building. There are some extremely good stories. There's extremely good character work. But when you break it down and you look closely and you're objective, you can see that a lot of these people are still absolutely green in the ring. I can't see myself going to moving from this point and going, NXT is much must watch to me. It's just not. There's just too many minutes of television of guys popping on screen that I've never seen before. It reminds me a lot of AEW, which though when this is what this is designed to do, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what NXT is designed to do. It's designed to kind of introduce us to new people, but I don't have the time for that. There's too many breakout star matches, too many up-and-comer, too many different, it feels like they're testing a lot of things in NXT. I just live under the assumption that once Triple H feels like something is worthy for someone of my caliber of fandom to watch, he will bring that up to a show that matters, a Monday Night Raw or a Friday Night SmackDown. But shout out to you guys. I will say, shout out to you guys who are able to watch NXT and you love it for what it is, and you even claim it to be the best brand in wrestling. I get it. I'm just not willing to put a crown on something that isn't what I consider to be the big boy in the room. All right, guys, award voting for the Casual Wrestling Awards will start this weekend on YouTube. All votes will be counted on the YouTube community tab. Next week, we will do the Casual Wrestling Community Christmas Party. Voting for all awards will close next Wednesday at noon, so make sure to get on and place your vote. I don't know. I think we're going to do 8 categories this year. So we'll keep it tight and we'll keep it fun. And so make sure to jump on and vote for your favorites. We will drop the Christmas episode on next Friday. Keep submitting questions for the Casual Wrestling Community Show. You can email those questions to the email that's going to be on the screen. You can drop them in the Discord, or starting today, you guys will have the ability to directly text me at the number I place right here. You can say, what's up? You can send me questions for the show. Do whatever you want to do. I'm giving all CWC members direct access to talk directly to me. So if you just want to say what's up, shoot me a text, say what's up. Hoodies are available on casualwrestling.com. Make sure to check those out. I have one on today. I have the Casual Wrestling Community Show hoodie on. And just an FYI, we will be taking the last week of the year off. No shows before New Year's. I will be in Los Angeles doing some business. So hopefully you guys enjoy the holidays, and we will be back up and running the first week of January. All right, so I always think it's important to be humble when you're wrong. It's one of my core kind of qualities about who I am. When you say something and it turns out to be untrue, I think you should have the balls to own it and wipe that egg off of your face. So IWC, this is your chance. You guys need to admit you were fucking wrong about CM Punk. And you guys need to issue every member of the casual wrestling community a formal apology for your blatant disrespect of our knowledge that we had about CM Punk. You guys wanted so badly for CM Punk to return and fall flat. You guys tried to shit on every moment, shit on every promo, shit on every hope and dream we had about CM Punk. And since his return, there's just been no problems. Not only is Punk fitting in WWE, he is absolutely thriving right now. He's mentoring people in NXT. He's playing well with people in the locker room. You guys remember all of those AEW voices and whispers that the locker room just wasn't going to accept CM Punk. If he came back, there would be revolution within the WWE locker rooms. But that's gotten pretty quiet. I mean, he even came on television this past week and apologized for leaving the WWE universe the way he did 10 years ago. Now, you can see all these people who are calling bullshit on this, but as somebody who tends to have a little bit of a curmudgeon attitude, I do genuinely believe that CM Punk is regretful for the way certain things went down. There is a part of me who has been kind of cherishing the CM Punk return like it was a limited time event. Like maybe, he'll be here 4 or 5 weeks and then things will fizzle and there won't be the response. But I absolutely was wrong. I think that CM Punk is around for the long haul. I think with this new attitude with the crowds, the crowd has embraced CM Punk. Everybody always says, oh, they're not going to embrace Cody Rhodes. We embrace Cody Rhodes. Oh, they're not going to embrace CM Punk. We embrace CM Punk. And he's done exactly what he needed to do to win the crowd back over. He came out first Monday Night Raw and he nailed that promo. Just basically laying out, I'm back. I'm happy to be home. It didn't appease the IWC. It didn't appease the AEW haters, but it did exactly what it needed to do for the casual WWE fans that needed to feel like CM Punk was happy to be home. Then he went over to SmackDown And he started planting little seeds and little nuggets to get us excited about all of the possible dream matchups that we could get with CM Punk back. Then he jumps back to Monday Night Raw, announces that he plans to be a Monday Night Raw superstar. He has his first verbal showdown with Seth Rollins, which, guess what, guys? It was as fucking good as we wanted it to be. It was as fire as we thought it was going to be. It was everything that we thought Seth Rollins and CM Punk was going to be. This is just the beginning, and oh shit, are we on a path of wrestling beauty for the next 2 or 3 months. And guess what, IWC? Here's the beautiful thing that I don't know if you guys are smart enough to let this register in your head. There was no producer listed for the segment between Seth Rollins and CM Punk. Now, take a second. There was no producer. You guys know what that means? Let me break it down for you. That means that two grown-ass men who possibly maybe don't like each other. I don't think that it runs as deep as people think it does, but I think at one point they didn't like each other. These two grown men put their differences aside and they went into a ring and they had a fire-ass promo on their own. WWE is about to let these two guys cook on their own. Sometimes I wonder if CM Punk had forgotten what it felt like to work with fucking adults. Shout out to Seth Rollins, who I assume at one time had legitimate heat with CM Punk, but he puts that behind because what? He knows this is going to be the biggest program in all of wrestling. There's a chance this is bigger than Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes as we turn the corner on WrestleMania. That promo felt good. Like, no pun intended, that promo felt very raw. Real emotions, real feelings, but it's two guys with enough respect for each other that they're going to let it get a little spicy without getting out of hand. I think it might be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of the wrestling world right now that CM Punk has come back and he's done everything so well that it sounded like to me that there's a possibility CM Punk was the more liked superstar in the ring on Monday night. And I think, the problem is that CM Punk knows how to roll with Seth's jabs. Seth is going to jab at him for being gone, and CM Punk knows how to turn that around and make it a struggle and make it seem like it was all part of a process to get him where he had to be. This is going to be an absolute clinic on how to do promo work from both guys. Both guys are absolutely good at this. And the IWC is so fucking lost right now because they expected CM Punk to come back and stir up a shit show. And instead, what we've gotten is corporate CM Punk. And they're going to try and talk negative about this, but there's nothing better for WWE than a corporate CM Punk, a guy who understands exactly what he needs to do to better the company. That doesn't mean he can't be fun. That doesn't mean he can't be anti-establishment. It just means that he knows everything he does is for the betterment of the company. And the IWC created this version of CM Punk. The IWC created the version of CM Punk that is showing up at NXT and mentoring younger wrestlers. Imagine this. This is such a hard concept to grasp for so many. Imagine a wrestling company where a old grizzled veteran shows up, talks to the youth, and the youth actually pay attention to what he has to say because they understand that a guy like CM Punk has gotten over before. He has reached that level, that God level of wrestling that only guys like Stone Cold, The Rock, John Cena have reached before. And these young guys, these young guys are embracing it. These Cora Jades, these Carmelo Hayes, these NXT wrestlers are embracing the return of CM Punk because it's only going to benefit them in the long run. Hey, IWC. You guys, pay attention. IWC, listen up. Listen when I talk. Are you guys still willing to argue that CM Punk was the problem in AEW? Because from where I'm standing, CM Punk has come back and he's been a model citizen, right? CM Punk has come back. He made up with Triple H. He was a bigger man. Not bigger than Triple H, but he was just the big man. They both put their differences aside, and they were able to create something absolutely special. And now CM Punk is at NXT, mentoring the youth. He's in the locker room, shaking hands, making things right with a lot of guys who didn't like him, guys who like him. They all now are under the understanding that, hey, if he's going to come back and he's going to get along, he's putting eyeballs on this product. And apparently, from what I'm reading, the CM Punk merch has sold through the roof, which we knew was going to happen. I've got a CM Punk shirt on underneath this hoodie right now. So he's paying for himself. When I said there was no downside to signing CM Punk, this is absolutely what I was talking about. But here's the kicker. This is the bigger fuck you to the IWC. Now apparently, Triple H and WWE and TKO are using CM Punk as the big selling pitch for the Monday Night Raw TV package. Listen, did you hear that? He's a selling pitch for he just probably doubled the value of Monday Night Raw's TV rights contract. Imagine right now being Tony Khan and hearing these stories, hearing that CM Punk added value to TV negotiations when you are in the middle yourself of struggling to get your TV deal put together, when there are rumors running around that your company is losing money because you cannot secure TV rights. You are hearing the rumors that CM Punk is adding value to the WWE's TV rights package. But CM Punk was the problem, right? CM Punk was the problem in AEW. Hey, remember when everyone said WWE didn't need CM Punk? How opinions change so quickly. So quickly. When you start looking at numbers and you stop thinking like a dipshit IWC who thinks it's all about just the X's and O's and the flips and the kicks, when you start looking at this as a business, then you grow up and you understand and you realize and you start talking like myself and you say that there was never a point in time that I thought WWE didn't need CM Punk. But I'm going to go one step farther. I think it's time that now we have to start talking about the long-term booking with CM Punk, because I think a lot of people thought that CM Punk was just brought in to put Seth Rollins over. I think we have to stop that train of thought. I think it might be time to turn these tables around and start talking legitimately about a CM Punk World Heavyweight title run very quickly while the iron is hot. I know you have plans, WWE. I know you have plans, Triple H, but I've always said one of the biggest problems in pro wrestling is waiting until these irons cool off. Right now, the CM Punk iron is as hot as it's ever going to be. We have to legitimately start talking about, at WrestleMania 40, the possibility of CM Punk walking out as World Heavyweight Champion. We have to have that conversation. We heard on Monday Night Raw the CM Punk chants. They drowned out. There was a faint but it was not as loud as the CM Punk chants, and it's time to have real conversations. It's time to have real conversations about, is CM Punk bigger than Cody Rhodes? Maybe, right? Is CM Punk bigger than LA Knight? Probably so. Hell, let's throw it out on the table. Is CM Punk bigger than Roman Reigns? I think it's possible. I honestly do. I think that the way he has come back and positioned himself in the company, he might have done everything so perfectly right that he has aligned himself as a likable character within the WWE. And now we have rumors floating around about Seth Rollins' contract being up in 2024, which once again just gives you more reason why you could hitch a wagon to someone like CM Punk moving forward. Now, let's be realistic. I think Seth Rollins resigns. There's no reason not to. But what if? What if Seth Rollins decides to take a year off? What if Seth Rollins hits the nuclear button and goes to AEW? Right now, it's looking like CM Punk is a guy that at least for the next 2 or 3 years can put the wagon, you can hitch the wagon to him and you could ride this horse to the promised land. Now, the Royal Rumble conversation has to get real spicy. Like, we have to start having legitimate conversations. Cody Rhodes, LA Knight, Sheamus, CM Punk, all viable options in my book. So many possibilities. Right now, if you're asking me, if you're asking Nerdy D, you're asking the casual wrestling community, CM Punk is the odds-on favorite to win the Royal Rumble right now just because of what that will lead to. A confrontation between CM Punk and Seth Rollins and how that plays out. Cody Rhodes doesn't need it. Roman Reigns doesn't need that. That match is set. It doesn't need any extra flair. Cody's talked about finishing the story. He could get there however he gets there. That match is set up to be what it is. But you have the possibility right now to make CM Punk versus Seth Rollins, the biggest match on the WrestleMania 40 card, which I don't think anybody expected was a real possibility. Night one of WrestleMania, CM Punk, the Royal Rumble winner versus Seth Rollins makes sense. Label the match to see who is the best in the world. You have CM Punk coming off of the momentum of Royal Rumble, and that shit is going to explode. Night one of WrestleMania will sell out maybe faster or be more anticipated than night two of WrestleMania. You mark my words on that. I truly believe, let's go back 3 or 4 weeks before, longer than that. Let's go back 2 months before CM Punk's deal came together. I think, CM Punk is stepping in and taking the path of LA Knight. I think the plan was for LA Knight to probably win the Royal Rumble and go on to challenge Seth Rollins, which still would have been a hell of a match, but it's not CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. It was not going to be the biggest match on the WrestleMania card. And I just want to reiterate that a month ago, a lot of IWC were screaming that WWE didn't need or didn't want CM Punk. And I want to reiterate right now to the IWC and to the AEW fans who secretly listen to this show, pay attention. Understand, your guy Tony Khan, your booker of the year, the guy y'all think is the greatest wrestling promoter of all time. I want you guys to understand that coming out of WrestleMania 40, there is a high probability that your two world champions in WWE are two guys that Tony Khan let walk out of his company. Let that sink in. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk could be the two top guys in WWE coming out of WrestleMania 40, and they're two guys that Tony Khan let walk away. But hey, you know what, guys? IWC, send him another Booker of the Year award. I'm sure he could use it with all the money that he's losing. Whatever. Look, I think there's somebody in WWE that I owe a major apology to, and I will let you guys know who that is coming out of this break. So, unlike the IWC, I am actually man enough to admit when I have made a major mistake in my casual wrestling watching career. And in order to be nicknamed the casual connoisseur like I am, you have to be able to see your faults. You have to be able to see the negatives. You have to be able to correct the way you think. You have to be able to recognize when you've taken things for granted. And so I think it's only right that on this day, I am man enough to speak into existence an apology to a man named Randy Orton. Now, I've watched Randy Orton possibly more than any other superstar in my lifetime. From the times I've watched wrestling, he's probably been on the television more than anybody else. And at every point that I've been very focused on professional wrestling, I don't think I've ever excessively liked or disliked Randy Orton. And as a matter of fact, I think it would be very fair to say that I've even been dismissive of the career of Randy Orton. From him being the legend killer, I didn't pay that much attention. To Legacy, I didn't pay that much attention. Evolution, I never really paid that much attention. And when I started watching again in the years around 2009, 2010, I attended WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta. I'll admit, I had to look up for this podcast who he wrestled. It was CM Punk. I don't remember it. I was there. I went to WrestleMania 28 in Miami. I had to look up once again that he faced off against Kane. I don't remember it. I was there. I went to WrestleMania 29 in New York and didn't remember that he wrestled against The Shield with Sheamus and The Big Show. I was there. I don't remember it. Now, I will honestly say I went to WrestleMania 30 with Lauren. This was the first one that we went to together. We drove our ass all the way to New Orleans. I do remember that the main event featured Batista, Randy Orton, and Daniel Bryan, but I paid zero attention to Randy Orton as a champion. I was only there to cheer on Daniel Bryan. And it's never meant to be disrespectful. I've always been cognizant of Randy Orton's skill level and how good he is in the ring. He's just never been somebody that I've gravitated to as a fan. And so I went back last night and I rewatched each one of those WrestleMania matches, and I was just kind of shocked and amazed that I didn't have recollection of these. These were phenomenal matches. I could remember certain little moments of hitting RKOs, and RKO is actually my favorite finisher of all time, which is fucking hilarious. But he just never had the same impact on me that Jericho or CM Punk had. So let's fast forward to today. Randy Orton returns at Survivor Series, and even in that moment when he returned, there were a lot of people who understood and could feel the magnitude of that moment. This is Randy Orton returning. To me, it just wasn't that big of a deal. I sat disappointed at the end of Survivor Series when I thought CM Punk wasn't coming back. And while I tried to mask it with at least we got Randy, deep down inside, I wasn't that excited saying that Randy Orton has come back. But over the last couple of weeks, I don't know what it is. A switch has flipped. It was like the idiot in me just turned off. And I caught myself saying things watching Randy Orton like, damn, I didn't know he was that big. Damn, I didn't know he was that smooth in the ring. I didn't know he had this level of intensity. What have I been watching? Even though I probably did know these things, I just caught myself not cognizant of how good he was in the ring. And I caught myself even saying, man, it looks like Randy Orton really loves wrestling and he really loves WWE, as if somehow deep down inside at some point I assumed that Randy Orton didn't love wrestling, that he was only there for a paycheck. I saw Randy Orton say he wants to wrestle for 10 more years. He wants to wrestle for 10 more years in a business where guys are constantly 1 foot out the door. This is absolutely something that speaks to a person like NerdyD. This is something I love to hear. But once again, for some reason, it just never resonated with me until right now. And I have realized in the present right now that I've missed so much that I was present for. I was actually at. I saw so much of Randy Orton that I just never let kind of settle in and kind of really get down into the fibers of who I am as a wrestling fan. That I'm a little upset that it took me till 2023 to realize and openly admit that I am a big fan of Randy Orton. And now, here we are. We're headed towards a showdown with Roman Reigns, which I'm actually excited for. Typically, I'm not that excited for Roman Reigns matches because they're kind of fixed. We know Randy's not going to win, but I'm excited seeing what does Roman have to do to deal with somebody like Randy Orton. What are the steps he has to take? But what I'm more excited about now is what's after that. Once we get that out of the way, what's next? If Randy Orton really plans to wrestle for 10 more years, that means we're just in the heart of this. We're in the middle of this man's career. There are 10 more years ahead of us where this man could do it at a high level. And I guess I missed out. I didn't fall in love with Riddle and Randy Orton. I didn't fall in love with Legacy. I didn't fall in love with Evolution. But I think this newest version of Randy Orton has my attention. So I'm genuinely excited to find out what is next. But I believe genuinely I owe Randy Orton an apology for being so blind to how great of a professional wrestler he actually is. And I just wanted to get that off of my chest on this week's episode. Let's see what's left to talk about, and then let's get out of here. Apparently, Dranov was possibly injured by Ridge Holland. There's conflicting reports. I'm not sure how this makes sense story-wise. I've seen conflicting reports that this is part of a story. I've seen that maybe he was really injured. It's very differing to my opinion on which one is actually true. If it's true and Dranov was injured by Ridge Holland, he's got to go. He's got to go. And I don't want to see somebody fired, but you can't. I think this would be like the third big time off injury that he's caused. I don't, unlike some other people, I don't necessarily hate the idea if WWE's playing into this a little bit and making it feel like he's dangerous in the ring. That's wrestling. Wrestling is always push boundaries. It's not in the best taste, but I don't hate it. If this is storyline, I don't know how it makes sense because I caught up on NXT enough to understand that it felt like Carmelo Hayes was going to be to blame for some of this, but I guess one thing that kind of sucks is the fact that with modern day wrestling, and here I am, I'm fucking talking about it, so I'm part of the problem. But one thing that sucks a little bit is that, like, this gets spoiled before we get there. This was pre-taped, it gets talked about, and now we're anticipating it for next week. So I don't absolutely love that. Alberto Del Rio there's a video of Alberto Del Rio circulating of him at a local gymnasium in Dallas, and the IWC are dogging the shit out of him. I honestly saw the video and I just thought that he had signed with AEW. Like the amount of people that were in that gymnasium, I thought we were seeing the hard cam side at Rampage, but no, truthfully, this is the reality of wrestling, right, guys? Like, you make a couple bad decisions and you fall from grace. I think certain guys, and I was a fan of Alberto Del Rio, not a fan of all the shit he's been accused of. I was a fan of Alberto Del Rio, the wrestler in WWE. It's kind of sad that you make just a couple poor life decisions and you wake up one day and you were a Royal Rumble winner. You were a world champion at WrestleMania. And now there's 25 people in a local gymnasium watching you wrestle. And I'm not going to speculate on whether he needs the money or not. I think he does commentating for UFC, so I can't imagine he's just hurting for money. Maybe he just still loves wrestling. But I do think that it's interesting that a couple bad decisions can send you down a bad path. All right, so apparently Lexus King of NXT, Brian Pillman Jr., has asked his fans to stop calling themselves registered Lex offenders. He needs them to drop it because it is not a TV friendly nickname. It's a clever nickname. It's a good one. It's funny. There's a real weird side of the internet that exists of wrestling fandom that exists, especially on Twitter. That I'm just glad that I don't get down in those trenches. It is the IWC of the IWC of the IWC. And sometimes they come up with gems like this. Registered Lex offenders is a hilarious name. I get it's a joke, guys. You got to be able to fucking laugh. I understand that it has negative context. I understand it's a joke. Like, let's laugh. We can laugh. It can be funny. I also saw somebody say that if it can't be registered Lex offenders, that they should be Lexpians. Another good one. Sometimes the IWC does win, and in this case, I think the IWC definitely won. I want to talk about for a second, Bryan Danielson is now the social media czar of AEW. I think it is absolutely hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious to me that the IWC has spent years dogging the shit out of Vince McMahon and dogging the shit out of WWE and dogging the shit out of their Twitch policies and just, scrutinizing the shit out of WWE actually treating wrestling like a business. And now all of a sudden we look at the landscape of pro wrestling and you have Triple H, who is really kind of listening to the crowd and doing what is best for the company and for the fans. And then you turn the tables and you look at AEW, and right now you have a dictator in Tony Khan, and you have wrestlers who are in the company as executive vice presidents. And now Tony Khan has appointed the czar of social media, Bryan Danielson, to just, instead of fixing problems within your company, let's just silence it. And that's what's happening here, is instead of doing the things to make your company better, instead of facing real problems that exist within your company, they've just appointed Bryan Danielson to tell everybody, shut the fuck up. Don't talk anymore. Which I've been a big proponent. I've kind of said AEW guys need to shut the fuck up. Stop going and airing all your dirty laundry. But I don't think it's a good thing that when it comes out that that's supposed to happen under the table. You're not supposed to find out now that there's a guy on the roster who's handing out fines to tell you to shut the fuck up. I love this. It just shows the clusterfuck that is AEW. I don't think they can dig out of this hole. When you start reading shit like this, it is a circus. It is the inmates running the asylum. It is the biggest indie wrestling show in all of professional wrestling, and that's all it will ever be at this point. Last story here, WWE planning to cover the ring with sponsors, breaking Vince McMahon's biggest rule of all time. I don't with all the shit that Vince McMahon has done, from having Theory come out to a Beyblade's Titantron, to having beef jerky splattered all over the Titantron, to having LA Knight win the beef jerky battle royal. I don't understand how this is that big of a deal. How is this that big of a topic? You're going to put a couple sponsors on the canvas in the ring? Sure. I mean, I think it's better than a Beyblades or a beef jerky battle royal. I'm completely fine with this. It works for UFC, especially if you do it kind of tastefully. Sometimes it looks kind of cool. You know, you pick the right sponsors, put a Prime logo in there, get the kids watching. Like, I think no harm, no foul here. I think it's absolutely stupid. I go one step farther. I liked when Brock Lesnar used to come out in the trunks that were covered in sponsorship, like Jimmy John and that. Let wrestlers sell some ad space on their gear. Why not? Like, let's go all in on this ability to let these people make money. It could get fun. But that is all I got for you guys this week. Make sure to like and subscribe if you don't already. Please share this video wherever you think casual fans are. If you want to contribute to the Casual Wrestling Creator Fund, the link is in the description of this video. Remember, I am placing a new Casual Wrestling text number where you can reach me directly, say what's up, send me questions, whatever you want to do. Make sure to go ahead and text that number. As always, I am the Notorious NerdyD. And this has been another episode of the NerdyD Wrestling Show. I will see you guys next week.